Hello and welcome back to Coastal Virginia Esports. This is Malbeefance. If you've been following this channel pretty much up until now, everything I've done is Wreckfest videos. This video is going to be a departure. Obviously, one of the biggest changes is that I'm using the microphone now. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this video, is because I want to test the audio. I don't really get to do these vlogs a lot, so I'm not really up to speed on the skills that I need in order to make these great gaming videos to upload. So this is a experiment for me, see how the microphone works out, see if I've set it up right, that sort of thing. And also, the other thing that I want to do that's different here is I'm doing an intro here for Fleet Commander Pacific. This is a game that is in development. I know that you can get it on Steam. You can probably get it a few other places, but the only place that I am currently aware of that you can get it is on Steam. The game is still in development. It's still basically in beta. I'm hoping that I can generate some support for the game because I do like it, and hopefully that additional support can get the developers the support that they need to go ahead and get this game finished. I do like it. I do see a lot of potential in it. There are some bugs. Hopefully I won't run into them during this playthrough. There are some bugs, and one of them that I'll point out, and you'll notice it right away, is the AI is not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed in this game. It does leave a little bit to be desired, and I do not like using the term AI. If I can paraphrase Andrew Ryan from BioShock, an AI chooses, a program obeys, and that's basically what all of this stuff we're calling AI today. That's really all it is. It's just it's a program. In some cases, it's an extremely sophisticated program, but it's still just a program. It's just following what it was programmed to do. Okay, it's not really making choices. Okay, so but I digress. Anyways, Fleet Commander Pacific, if you're familiar with Avalon Hill, they were a game company back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They made a lot of tabletop board games, war games, and simulations. Things like that. And one of the games that they had was Victory in the Pacific. And Fleet Commander Pacific is a pretty good representation of Victory in the Pacific. Fleet Commander Pacific has a few new bells and whistles that basically tweak the original Victory in the Pacific. And I really do like what they've done with the game. Okay, so I'm not going to get into the rules a lot. The game's pretty simple. You'll figure out the rules as we go. One thing that I do want to point out that you'll notice is that the Imperial Japanese Navy side, the IJN side, they basically hold the initiative. Everything that happens in the game, the Japanese player does it first. Okay, moving their pieces and things like that. The reason for this, the reason that the Allies go second, is in order to simulate the strategic advantage that the ultra intelligence intercepts gave to the Allies during the war, okay, especially in the Pacific. All right, and so for that reason, the Japanese, they'll deploy their patrollers first. They'll go ahead and they'll do their raids, plan their raids first, and then the Allied side will respond to that. Okay, and so one of the things that the game does in order to try and balance that out is whoever is playing the Japanese, they will get to choose the order in which the battles will be fought for that given turn. Okay, sometimes it makes a difference. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of that, but there is some strategy there. Okay, so all right, that's pretty much it for all the introductory stuff. We'll go ahead and we'll get right into the game. I'm going to play as the Allied side, and I'm going to let the computer play as the IJN side. And anybody that is familiar with Victory in the Pacific knows that and they realize just how limited AIs are in some of these games. You'll understand that I just gave myself all of the advantage. And I freely admit that. But like I said, this is not a serious study of strategy or anything like that. This is just a introduction to the game and the gameplay and a test of the audio. Okay, so without any more ado, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. It's already set. It jumps right into the grand campaign, and I've selected the computer to run the Japanese, and off we go. The first thing that's going to happen is the sneak attacks, the surprise attacks. First, the Japanese will do their attack on Pearl Harbor. This is happening automatically because it is the computer that is running the show. So here you've got Kido Butai. They are selecting the battleships in port. So here we've got hits on the Maryland. Maryland is now sunk at her moorings. California has taken hits. The West Virginia has gotten some damage. Tennessee has gotten heavily damaged. The Arizona is gone. Arizona is destroyed. Pennsylvania has taken some hits. And so that was round one. Now, historically, the 7th Air Force has an opportunity to counterattack, and I'm going to use 7th Air Force to go after Akagi and hope for the best. So we have disabled the Akagi, and this is going to create one of the bugs that is in the game, and I'll show you that as it develops. So the Japanese get their second attack. Akagi has sunk the Oklahoma. Oklahoma is now destroyed. Kiryu has done heavy damage to the Nevada. West Virginia has been sunk at her moorings. California has taken more damage. The Nevada has been destroyed. And the raid is over. One of the things I'd like to point out is when you are a vessel in port, it takes double damage to sink the vessel. Now we have the attack on the Prince of Wales and the Repulse. Land-based air has sunk the Prince of Wales. The Repulse has taken heavy damage. And now the second wave in this particular raid, I don't get a chance to counterattack. And that is it for the Repulse. She goes down. The land-based air survives the battle. Alright, so now the surprise, the Japanese Hawaii attack force goes home. And here is the bug that I was talking about. The disabled Akagi did not return to port, and it is now stuck there in Hawaiian waters. It will not be able to do anything. It's going to be a cheese kill for me to go ahead and sink it. This is one of the bugs in the game that I'm hoping the developers will get fixed soon. So now we're in turn one, and the Japanese are sending out their patrollers. Patrollers are how you control the sea zones. Each sea zone that you control at the end of the turn gets you so many victory points, and whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins. Each sea zone has a different strategic value for the players. A perfect example is the Central Pacific right here. For the Japanese, this is an important sea zone, and they get 2 victory points for controlling it. Whereas for the Allies, it really doesn't matter if they control this, so they do not get any victory points for it. This is a major consideration for playing in the game as to which sea zones you're going to focus on. In some cases, it winds up being a situation where one player has to do operations in a sea zone that is completely useless to them simply to deny the strategic victory points to the other player. Okay, so now I've got to do the Allied patrols. First up is the Dutch De Ruyter and the British Exeter that are in Singapore. I'm going to get them out of there as quickly as possible. I want them to go someplace relatively safe. So I am going to send both of them over to the Bay of Bengal. Now I can move both ships at the same time. I can move them all as one big group, or I can move them individually. I did that individually simply because I wasn't sure if I was going to send the De Ruyter down to the Indian Ocean or not, but I decided I'm going to send both of them over to the Bay of Bengal. Houston in the Philippines, I'm going to send her down to the Indian Ocean. I could send her to the South Pacific, but that would be like handing her to the Japanese, and you'll see why in a moment. So Houston heads down to the Indian Ocean. Australia is going to patrol in the Coral Sea. Canberra is going to patrol over here in Micronesia. On the map, it's called the U.S. Mandate. The reason that I'm holding up right now is because I want to point out there are American forces that appear in random locations here on turn 1. The American carriers, we're not sure where they are out here, and in the original Victory in the Pacific, you would roll dice to see where the carriers wound up showing up. They could show up in the Central Pacific, they could show up in the Hawaiian Islands, they could wind up showing up next turn where they would show up either in Micronesia or they would show up on the West Coast. Now, I'm hoping that all of them will show up in the Hawaiian Islands. The AI is not stupid in certain regards, and it has deployed a killer force to the Central Pacific, and any of my ships that show up there, any of my carriers that show up there, they will most likely die, and so I don't want any of my ships showing up there. I'm hoping that that doesn't happen. But as soon as I deploy Canberra here, the game's going to run on automatic again. I'm going to send Canberra to patrol over here in Micronesia so that I can collect the victory points for that. So now the Japanese are going to deploy their land-based air. The 25th Flotilla goes to the South Pacific. They would have been able to attack the Houston, and Houston wouldn't have been able to do a damn thing about it. 26th Flotilla deployed to Japanese waters. Now, I would normally deploy them here to the Marshall Islands to get those victory points. The computer decided not to do that this time around. I don't know why. The computer has sent their Yokosuka Marine Division into the Central Pacific to go ahead and land at Midway. There's nothing I can do about that. The computer is trying to do failed raids. Depending on how far you go, ships have got to do speed rolls. These numbers here on the bottom of the ships, they represent, the first number is the firepower, how many dice you roll to attack. The second one is their defensive value, how many hits they can take. And then the last one is their speed. That speed is significant in how far they can go to patrol or to raid, and if they go too far, they have to roll against that number in order to actually make the raid or the patrol. So now luckily all of my carriers have either shown up in the Hawaiian Islands or they will show up next turn. So that's a good thing. So click OK there. Okay, the Japanese get to deploy their I-boat. And that's basically submarines that get a free attack. Oh, excuse me. Alright, so here we are fighting in Indonesia. Round 1. Because I only have air assets, I was not able to redeploy 5th Air Force. They stay there for round 1, basically to get sacrificed. They normally die. There's nothing to do about it. Because all I had was air forces, the only choice that we had is for an daytime air engagement, and now I get the opportunity to return fire before the damage takes effect. I can choose any of these to go after, and right now the most important aspect that I can do to hurt the Japanese side is to go after their carriers and hopefully get some damage here. We've disabled the Zoiho, so she will have to return to port for repairs. So Zoiho retreats to Cameron Bay. The next battle that we're going to do is here in the Hawaiian Islands. So I get to pick, do I want air or do I want surface? I'm going to go with surface. I get a, because I control the waters, and because if I choose air, I would get a die roll bonus. But I want to go surface. Hopefully my cruisers can sink the carrier, and that way the carrier doesn't get an opportunity to attack. So we're going to have air followed by surface. The submarine has attacked the Hornet and has disabled it. The Akagi has sunk the Minneapolis. Alright, so the bug didn't work as it has in the past. The Akagi has actually had an opportunity to attack. In the past, this bug has kept the vessel in a uh, in a disabled condition, and when a vessel is disabled, it cannot react, it cannot attack. But this time the bug has not done that. The Akagi has actually been able to attack. Now I get to counterattack, where 4 of my carriers get to basically dogpile on Akagi. So their Akagi's been disabled. Now she's taken 3 hits. There's a 4th hit. There's more disabling hits. And Hornet takes out Akagi. So Akagi is now sunk. This is bad news for the Japanese because they cannot replace their vessels as much as I am able to. Now my disabled Hornet has got to retreat. And you can see there are certain areas where you can retreat to. They're highlighted. I'm going to have Hornet retreat to Pearl Harbor, so that way her disabled result can be repaired. And the Japanese pick the last battle is Central Pacific. I've got nothing there to stop them, so the division lands on Midway, and Midway doesn't have any defenders, so they conquer it. And the invasion division is just automatically considered expended. It will return in 2 turns. So now here is the end results. The Japanese have managed to gain 11 victory points. I've managed to gain 8, so the difference is 3 victory points to the Japanese. And it's showing me, you see what I get for my victory points: 1 for the Bay of Bengal. I don't get anything for the Indian Ocean. And then 2 for the Coral Sea, 2 for Micronesia, and then 3 for Hawaii. Obviously, we know why the Hawaiian Islands are so important. Micronesia and Coral Sea, for those of you that are not aware, these are very important to the Allies. They're also important to the Japanese player because they are the supply line between the United States and Australia. Alright, so now we do patrol returns. You would do raid returns first, and the raiders have less of a option on where it is they can return to. Okay, whereas patrollers, patrolling vessels, they've got a little bit more option on where it is they can return to. Now obviously, okay, so I picked all the ships that are currently patrolling in the Coral Sea, and it's showing where they can go in order to return to base. This is important in where you return them to base because of where they can go to next time when you want them to go out. Okay, in a nutshell, you can go up to 2 sea zones from the base. Raiding, you can go up to 3 sea zones from the base. Okay, so if I go ahead and I have them return to Port Moresby, they could next turn they could patrol in the Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, or up here into Indonesia. Okay, whereas if I went ahead and I had them return here to Micronesia, then they wouldn't be able to get to India, or the Indian Ocean. They wouldn't be able to get to Indonesia. Okay, so but I want them to return. I want them to return to Port Moresby, just in case the computer decides it wants to do a it wants to try and push on Australia. So Houston also returns to Port Moresby. Now, British vessels are limited in where they can return to. Okay, they're basically limited to this side of the map. Okay, now De Ruyter, the Dutch De Ruyter, she can return pretty much anywhere she wants to, but I try to keep her with the British in order to help support their forces, because British forces are very limited in the game historically. They were very limited until after the war in Europe had closed. They really didn't have anything that they could spare to come out here and fight in the Pacific. So here in U.S. Mandate, the Canberra, Pensacola is one of the vessels that shows up randomly at the end of the turn. So she shows up here in Micronesia, and then all of my vessels that showed up in the Hawaiian Islands. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them return to Samoa, because that gives me the ability to use them either in the Hawaiian Islands or the Coral Sea, depending on which way the computer wants to go with its offensive operations. So now I've returned all of my ships, so now we move into turn 2. The Japanese, again, they will move first. Here's your Japanese reinforcements, Yunyo and Shoho, and another Marine Corps division. Here are my reinforcements. You have a major British reinforcement showing up at Ceylon. Don't get your hopes up. These guys don't stick around for long. What's important is the Lexington showing up at Pearl Harbor, and then my returning land-based air. The weight of reinforcements highly benefits the Allies. You'll see that as the game goes by. Now, the AI has sent a Japanese patroller to the Hawaiian Islands. Now, that could either be a diversion, or it could be signs of a much larger attack force coming in. Now, I don't know why the computer did this, but they have got a large patrolling force here in the Central Pacific. Okay, they could be hoping that I'll go after it. Okay, and I might. Depends on what else happens as we deploy. They've sent a large force to Indonesia, and the reason that it does that is because it wants to check a potential large deployment of British forces into Indonesia. Okay. Now, some people might be thinking, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Let's knock heads. Unfortunately, the danger here is in the air power. The British do not have a lot of air power in the game, and right now I do not have a lot of land-based air that I can deploy to Indonesia in order to support them. The computer has a preponderance of aircraft carriers that have attack bonuses, and they've also got a preponderance of land-based air that they can deploy here in order to blunt anything that I do. So unfortunately, as much as I would love to see the British battle line go into battle against the Japanese, it is just not a smart move right now, and the best play for the Allied player is to be on the defensive and to basically do what was historically done, do carrier raids in lightly defended areas in order to pick off the light forces that are there, if any. Okay. Another potential advantage for me that you may see on the map is the Marshall Islands. The Japanese have not deployed any ships there as patrollers. This is an area where I could pick up a couple of victory points, but again, because the Japanese have bases that are either in or connected to this sea zone, they can deploy land-based air into this area, and they can do it with such large numbers that it would be dangerous to the forces that I've got available to me. Okay. So, alright, so I am going to deploy a large cruiser force from Ceylon into the Bay of Bengal. So the trick with the patrollers is that if you attack the area where the other players got patrollers, if you wipe out all of the patrolling ships, those are the ships that get you the victory points, okay, if they're there at the end of the turn. So if you go into a sea zone and you wipe out the other guy's patrollers, even if you do not win that battle, even if you've got a retreat or you're wiped out, the other side does not get the victory points if there are no patrollers. Now, land-based air also counts for patrolling. So that's another consideration for whether or not you want to take the risk of doing a raid into a zone. Okay? And obviously, if one player sends patrollers into a sea zone where the other player has patrollers, then that is an indication that they are probably most likely going to make a raid there. All right, so at Port Moresby, okay, now I can contest the South Pacific if I wanted to, and I'm really not certain if I want to do that. I mean, I can concentrate my carriers, but I really do believe that this force here in Japan, they're going to use that to go ahead and attack the Hawaiian Islands. So I am just going to play fully defensive right now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to deploy these 3 cruisers to the Coral Sea. And then the 2 cruisers here at Espiritu Santo, I'm going to deploy them to Micronesia to patrol there. And then at Hawaii, I'm actually going to use the 2 battleships and a couple of cruisers to go ahead and patrol here. And now this tends to be a little controversial, but I'm going to send a cruiser up here to go ahead and patrol the North Pacific. I get a victory point for this. Okay, the Japanese do not get any victory points for the Aleutian Islands, but if they control it 2 turns in a row, they will starve out a 2 and convert that into their base. So I may deploy some of my land-based air out of Dutch Harbor in order to go ahead and either chase him out of there or hopefully sink him. Okay. Now, if you see, here are the battleships that are sunk at their moorings in Pearl Harbor. I have the opportunity to repair them, but there's not a lot of repair points available at the moment, so it may take a while. And then Pennsylvania, she could actually move on her own, okay, but I'm expecting a major attack here, so I do not want to have Pennsylvania out here on the water in her damaged state. So that's going to be it for my patrollers. And now we go into the land-based air stage. Okay, so highlighted is all of the places where the Japanese can send their land-based air. That first flotilla went there to the Japanese islands, so now it's my turn. I get to deploy 1. And what I'm going to do is, I'm not expecting anything over here in the Bay of Bengal, so I'm going to concentrate on having I've only got 4 that I can deploy. So let me put 1 up here so that I can go ahead and try and chase him out of there. And then I can concentrate my carriers anywhere the computer decides it wants to send Japanese forces. So in order to give myself a little bit more flexibility with my carriers, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to concentrate my remaining land-based air here in the Coral Sea. This way, if there is a small thrust into the Coral Sea, I've already got air power there to go ahead and take care of it. So now I'm out of forces that I can deploy. So the Japanese just finishes deploying their land-based air. Okay, so now the amphibious assault phase, whoever's got amphibious divisions, they can move them. The Japanese player has moved their amphibious forces into Indonesia. So here come the raids. So now I've got a carrier that is going to Micronesia. I've got a force that is backing up this one in the Hawaiian Islands. Alright, so there's no major Japanese raids going on. This is a small force in the Hawaiian Islands. This is only 1 ship down here, the Zoiho. This is another one of them bugs. This is where the computer shows its limited programming. It loves to send the Japanese light carriers on these suicide missions, and I have no idea why. I'm not sure if this is meant to be a diversion. If it was meant to be a diversion, then you would think there would be a much larger attack going on here somewhere, but that is not the case. Okay, so I mean, I've got no choice. I've got to respond. If they're going to send light forces like this for me to kill, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to pass. I'm not going to look to gift horse in the mouth here. Okay, so the British forces, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have them just raid out into the Bay of Bengal. There's nothing for them to do, but this way they're accounted for. Now I've got the fleet carriers Shokaku and Kaga, along with the battle cruiser Haruna, and then Unyo is classified as a fleet carrier, but it doesn't carry the firepower that the Kaga and the Shokaku do. So I think of it more as a light carrier. It doesn't have the attack bonus the other guys do. So I'm going to take Enterprise and 2 more cruisers, and we will respond to Zoiho in Micronesia. Now, I do have 2 carriers here in Pearl Harbor, and so that's going to wind up giving me 2 heavy carriers against their 3. So I'm sorry, I'm going to stack the odds in my favor. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to deploy the rest of the carriers and their escorting cruisers. I'm going to deploy them up in the Hawaiian Islands in order to go ahead and put as much of the, or stack the deck as much in my favor as I can. Okay, so now I'm done with my raids. I'm keeping the Pennsylvania import. So now the Japanese player, the computer, is going to deploy the Japanese submarines, and most likely they're going to put them here in the Hawaiian Islands. Okay, nope, they get to do failed raids. Okay, Kaga failed their speed roll, and I should have been paying attention for that. Okay, so the Japanese one, the computer wants to fight here in the Aleutians first. Now, the Japanese player has no air assets, so they cannot defend against this. Basically, I can attack with impunity. If I don't damage or sink Kitakami on the first turn, the computer's going to be wise and they're going to retreat. So there's 1 roll, there's 2, I didn't do anything. 10th Air Force let me down. So I am not going to retreat. And so here the computer gets to select retreating units. That's the only one they got. I can't pursue. I don't get the chance to pursue. So off he goes. Alright, so now we're going to do the Hawaiian Islands attack. I've got 2 battleships. Okay. I'm going to try it. Let's go ahead and do surface attack. I shouldn't give the battleship an opportunity to attack, but the battleship, it's only 1 battleship. It can only damage 1 other vessel, whereas the carriers could wind up damaging 2 vessels, where I'm in a position where I can sink them or cripple them before they're able to do any damage. Alright, so the Japanese submarine attacks and misses. The Haruna disables the Idaho. Idaho is going to return fire. So now here's a difference between Victory in the Pacific and Fleet Commander Pacific. In Victory in the Pacific, you must attack, in a night battle, you must attack all surface units before your extra surface units are able to attack the carriers. Whereas in this game, in the computer game, I could attack the carriers without attacking Haruna. Okay? I don't agree with that, but it's not my game. It is what it is. Alright, so I'm going to have New Mexico attack the Shokaku because of its attack bonus. And then I'm going to have 4 cruisers gang up on the Unio. And then I want the rest of the cruisers to help make sure that Haruna goes down. So Idaho sinks Haruna. New Mexico crippled Shokaku and did a lot of damage. Unio is sunk. Shokaku retreats to truck. I'm retreating Idaho to Samoa. Even though she's crippled, she didn't take any actual damage. I've never understood how they figured that. So even though the only place I have that can repair damage to the ship is Pearl Harbor and the West Coast, a disabled vessel can show up anywhere else, and as long as they sit there 1 turn, they can get that disabled marker removed, and they're repaired. So I'm going to send Idaho down to Samoa, which makes it easier for her to get to the Coral Sea. So Japan invades the Philippines, which was entirely unnecessary. Another AI issue. More on that later. So now the battle for Micronesia. Obviously their carrier is going to select air attack. I'm going to select surface. Oh no, wait, they did. They selected surface. That was dumb. Pensacola disabled the Zorro, and Salt Lake City finished her off. Alright, so now raids are returning. And the Japanese are concentrating their forces at Chuck Lagoon. Basically, it gives them a lot of options for mobility. So now I got to return my raiders. Now, watch this. These are all British ships. Now, raiders can return to any of the major ports that player controls. But you will notice that the British forces, the only major ports they get to return to is Suez and Sri Lanka, Ceylon. Okay. Now, there's no point in returning to Singapore because the Japanese have controlled Indonesia for 2 turns in a row. That means that they have isolated Singapore, and it will flip over to their control this turn. Same thing with Leh, and the same thing with the Philippines. They would have converted anyway. So the Japanese player, the computer, deploying their Marine Corps division and losing the use of it for 2 turns to the Philippines, that was a bad call. The reason the British get to return to Andaman Island is because it is within the Bay of Bengal zone. But I'm going to have them go back to Ceylon. Really doesn't matter which one of these they return to. So now my raiders in the U.S. mandate, Micronesia, I'm going to have them go to Espiritu Santo. That, again, that is just concerns flexibility for later operations. Same thing with all the folks over here in the Hawaiian Islands. I'm going to have them go down. See, they're not able to get to Espiritu Santo, but they can get to Samoa. Again, that's just so I've got flexibility. So now here you see the Japanese. It showed you there real quickly their points for their control. They've managed to get 12 points. This time I've managed to get 10. The reason for that is because I went and took the trouble to send a cruiser up here into the North Pacific, and then I also have this land-based air all the way up here in the Aleutian Islands. Gets me 2 more points. Okay, so at the end of 2 turns, the Japanese are ahead 5 victory points. This is actually good for the Allies. It just means as the game goes along, it'll be easier for me to swing things in my favor. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully it's not a bad video. If you like it, please leave a like, please subscribe, follow us. Like I said, this is I admit this is casual gaming. I don't have a lot of time to go ahead and put up a lot of videos, but I still would appreciate it if you would go ahead and follow along with us. Give us a like, leave me a comment in the comment below. Let me know if you like the video. Let me know what you think we can do to improve, and if you have a particular game that you like, let me know what it is. If I've got it, maybe I'll go ahead and do a video on it, okay? And then obviously any questions that you have about this game, I'll be happy to answer them if I can, okay? Alright, so yeah, so this is the end of the turn. From here, when I go ahead and I click done, it'll go ahead and it'll shift over from turn 2 to turn 3, okay? And so once again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.